Michigan Sports Media Network, and today we are joined with James Gullett, as always. Unfortunately, Brad will no longer be a part of Michigan Sports Media Network. So, farewell to you, Brad. I wish you luck in your future endeavors. Sucks that you felt the need to go, but it is what it is. With that being said, we are looking for more guests every week. Right now, we are doing one show a week every Wednesday live at 6 p.m. till we're done. So if you want to come on, just talk some sports, we will definitely be willing to have you on. But with that being said, today James will be covering the Tigers for us because, there's really not much going on in all the other sports right now. Like, the draft just happened, so it's kind of dead in the NFL. The Pistons are out of the playoffs, which we will get to in a little while. But with that being said, James, the floor is yours for our Tigers update.
All right. What's going on, everyone? Whoever's out there watching, if you're not watching live, then thank you for watching at a time that's more convenient for you. So for covering the Tigers today, I just wanted to talk about their most recent success. They are 7-3, their last 10 games played. They have the number one record, not only in the AL Central, but in the entire American League. The season is still very much young, of course. Most people judge after that like 40 game mark. That's about 25% of the season. That's when the analysts and people will really sink their teeth into the year and start evaluating, not just, the season's still early. And we are at the 35 game mark. So we are close to that 40 mark golden standard, so to speak. And so far, so good. We had played game 36 tonight. We are playing in Colorado, so unfortunately is an 8:40 start. So sorry out there for those who wake up early for work, but it is what it is. And then tomorrow they have a double header against Colorado at 3:10 and 6:10 respectively. Because of the rainout, they do the double header tomorrow. So with that being said, about I can do the quick math in my head, about 27 hours ish from now, we have three games in by then. Um, so that will get us to that 38 game mark and much closer to that, like I said, that magical 40 number a lot of people bring up. These three games in this 27-hour span are all versus the Rockies in Colorado. And the Tigers have not been the best road team this year. However, I expect a sweep here. Colorado is unfortunate for them, fortunate for us, the worst team in baseball. They are 6-28 on the season. They are the only team in Major League Baseball that does not have at least 10 wins. And they're barely halfway to that. They are 2-8 their last 10 games. So they are coming off being cold for, I mean, like I said, a big, pretty decent chunk. And the Tigers are hot. So I expect a sweep here. Of course, you still got to play the games, and any given Sunday goes the saying, but obviously for us it will be Wednesday, Thursday. Um, like I said, the Tigers are 7-3, so just going by the two teams' last 10 games, 7-3 versus 2-8, odds are in our favor, even with us being on the road. Um, my apologies, I just lost my spot. And then the only thing I really wanted to add besides the upcoming series is a quick update on a couple of the injury guys that we've had because I don't think the Tigers' success in terms of the division surprises anybody. I know with Brad before the season started, I was on BT Ballers and I said I think the Tigers are going to win the division. So I'm not shocked that we're in first right now. But that was before Parker Meadows was ruled, I don't want to say out for the season, but he has yet to play. Matt Vierling has yet to play. And Alex Cobb, who was one of our bigger name acquisitions in the offseason, has yet to play. So right now, we are the third best team in baseball in totality if you factor in the National League. And we are missing two everyday players and a starting pitcher in our rotation still. So I feel like these Tigers are kind of like the Lions, where obviously we don't have 22 injuries, but we're relatively beat up and we're still just making it work. So if we can make this work with the roster that we have, assembled right now and who we have healthy right now, when we get these guys back eventually, assuming they do come back, it's obviously only going to be good news for us. And if they come back and they aren't playing at the level we expect them to, we can just, replace them with the guys who have been getting it done. With that being said, I have no update on Cobb or Meadows. I have not heard anything about them. However, Matt Verling, one of our better utility players, he can play all over the field. He recently had his AAA debut and his rehab start, so to speak, getting his feet wet in the minors before coming back to the big league. So at least his timetable is started and is in process. And I don't know if it was his first, it was either his first or second game back. He had a home run and he helped lead the Toledo Mudhens to victory. So, I mean, pretty, no pun intended, but started things out with a bang in his rehab assignment. So if we can add a player of that caliber to a team that's already in first place, I mean, obviously nothing but good things ahead, at least on paper. And with that, I will send it back to you. And that's all I got for the Tigers today.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always great to see the Tigers playing well, but man, they are just playing killer baseball right now. It feels like, last year, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I am not, the biggest baseball guy, but it feels like last year they kind of came on strong a little bit towards the end. They had a pretty solid year, and then it seemed like towards the end of the year they kind of really, really got it going. Where it seems like this year they're starting from the beginning. It's just like we are fucking locked in, we are loaded, and we are ready to go. And like you said, that's with a lot of injuries too. So, it really bodes well, for the future for the Tigers. Now, with that being said, keep your eyes out open and your ears listening, I guess, because we will be having some more giveaways throughout the Tigers season. So stay tuned for that. And so you don't miss it, subscribe, follow us, you know how that goes. But with that being said, now we will kind of switch it up a little bit because James is still going to be the guy here. We're going to go with the Red Wings, and I know there's not too much going on, but the NHL lottery did just happen. So sounds like the Red Wings didn't get the best deal. So I'm sure James is ready to give us our thoughts on that.
Yep. Per usual, the Red Wings unfortunately got no help in the draft lottery. I forgive me, I don't have the research on this. When the NHL switched to the draft lottery, however many years ago it was, the Wings have yet to move up at any given time. Not a single season did we move up even a single spot. So we had a 91% chance to pick 12th or better, and we got I don't want to say stuck per se, but we got picked 13. So the 91% chance failed, and the 9% chance we had of dropping back hit, of course. So the Wings will have the 13th pick in this upcoming draft. Um, I'm not excited about it. No one I know is excited about it. Even the most diehard fans out there aren't excited about it. It's almost unanimous on X that the fans want us to trade this pick for someone that can contribute because at 13, the talent most likely, you can obviously find a gem, but the talent most likely isn't there. And even if you do find a prospect that falls or this or that, it's still going to be 2 or 3 years until we see them. So hopefully, with the current prospect pool we have, we can trade this pick for someone that will give us more immediate help. That being said, for the same reasons we want to get rid of this pick, it's not super valuable. That's going to land us some all-star because you got to trade something to get something. So until draft day happens or a trade happens, that's what we're doing right now. There's obviously no other update with the Wings. They haven't played a game. Obviously, they're in the NHL is in the playoffs right now. The Grand Rapids Griffins, the Red Wings minor league team, is in the playoffs right now. And unfortunately, for this round, they only play a best of five, and they are down 2 games to nothing. And in those 2 games, they've been outscored 8-2. So when myself included, but when people are saying like we have these prospects that are going to come up here and save the Red Wings, I'm like, they're not getting it done at the minor league level. So I mean, if you can't, I mean, at least you made the playoffs. That's more than the Wings have. But if you can't even beat the guys that aren't good enough to be on NHL rosters for other teams, how are you going to come up and then just take on NHL level players? And they're still developing. It's not, I'm not saying the sky is falling on them. I'm not saying give up on them. Sebastian Cosa, prospect I'm personally very high on, had a terrible night for game one. He's the goalie. He allowed 4 goals, and they benched him for game two. So in one aspect, I mean, obviously game two wasn't his fault, but letting in 4 goals when his team needs him most, and even Steve Yzerman said in his press conference that if he has a good showing in these playoffs, he's probably going to start on the Red Wings, or at least in camp with the Red Wings next year to see what he's got. And that's not a good example of taking the bull by the horns and making the most of that situation for him. In other hockey news, I'll say also is I've been watching quite a bit of playoff hockey this year because I miss it, and I personally think playoff hockey might be the best playoffs. I will say it is up there with NFL because the one and done offers something that the 7 game series just doesn't. But it is everyone's cranked it up a notch, everyone's more physical, every second means more yada yada yada. If you watch playoff hockey, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about. And from watching these other teams that are in the playoffs and seeing how good they are, it has been it has dawned on me exactly how far away the Wings are, unfortunately. As much as we missed the playoffs last year by just a tiebreaker, this year we took a step back. But I watched like the Panthers and Maple Leafs game, and I remember watching, both teams making plays, and then I'm just like, yeah, if the Wings were playing Toronto, we would just get killed. And then Panthers would do something. I'm like, yeah, if the Wings were playing Florida, we would just get killed. So I'm just like, okay, this brings up kind of two questions, a two thought process for me. And I want to leave it up to the viewers and also throw it to Jace on this. Comment down below or message us on Twitter or X, whatever you want. But I do want to hear from other people on this. Does this mean, A, we are having the right approach that Yzerman is doing in terms of drafting, developing, because we are so far away? Why rush into the playoffs just to get smacked in the face because these other teams are that much better than us? Or B, does Steve Yzerman need to be fired more than ever because after 6 years, we are still that far away? So that's what I wanted to bring up. And I want the viewers and I want your opinion on that, Jace, if you have an opinion on that. Because I'm like, I can see why he's taking the slow approach just because we're not remotely close. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, this is post year 6, like not like during year 6. It's been 6 years. Why the hell are we still that far away? So with that, I'll send it back to you, and that's all I got on the Red Wings at this time.
Yeah, really great points there, James. I do want to kind of go back a little bit. It was a good point you made with the first round pick because obviously we're not going to get, like you said, a great prospect that's going to, do anything in the next, I don't know, 5 years maybe for us. It might not even touch the Little Caesars ice in the next 5 years. So I definitely agree with you on that we should try to move it. But again, like you said, we got to have somebody that wants it. Now, my question is, do you think, and I'll answer your question after I ask you this one. Do you think that we should be trying to trade for a defenseman? Do you think we should be trying to trade for a goal scorer, or do you think we should be trying to trade for a goalie? Because personally, I think we I'm kind of in the camp of we need a goalie unless Kosa can come up and really make a difference. You know what I mean? Because it does feel like obviously the defensemen weren't doing him many favors. But it definitely seemed like the goalie situation was pretty rough in Detroit this year, and it definitely seemed like that led to a couple losses we probably shouldn't have had. So with that, what is your thoughts on that?
Uh, Excellent question to start. And once again, maybe this speaks to Iserman, but the realistic answer is all three. We aren't scoring enough goals. We were a bottom 20 team in goals scored. Without even looking at the numbers, I can tell you we're a bottom five defensive team, and our goalies are atrocious. The game I went to live, we ran into a I don't know his name off the top of my head, but we ran into a hot goalie in the Ottawa Senators, and he saved every damn thing we threw at him. And I just remember sitting in the stands in awe of him and thinking, damn, that goalie. I mean, it's obviously an above average game for him, but that goalie is literally single-handedly keeping his team in the game. So that would be really cool if we can get someone like that. And of course, he doesn't do that night in and night out, but he did it enough times that Senators went to the playoffs. I mean, they already got bounced in the first round, but they went at least. And I remember watching some games where, I mean, I've been on record on many podcasts saying I think we have three NHL level defensemen. A team fields six. So I think we are playing with six baseball term, but for a defenseman, they aren't worthy of a major league roster spot. And you could have the best goalie of all time in his prime, but if you give the opposing team 20 scoring chances a game, eventually two or three are going to find the back of the net. So I hate to have a cop out answer because like we could use all three. Um, but I guess if I would have to say one, I would say goalie. Um, the goalie is that last line of defense. And like I said, with I think his name was Ushchek. I'm still rattled about that. But like I said, when I was in that Senators game, the Wings had quality chances because their defense failed, and we lost that game. So it, it would be nice to have a goalie like that. And the one thing I can at least say with some confidence is Yzerman has put in a fair amount of resources to the goalie position um, for our future. I'm not too big on like the Peter Mrazek trade, as I've made known. I don't like many of the goalies we have on the wings right now. But Kosa is a damn good prospect. He's right on that cusp of getting in the major leagues for good. He did have that one backup appearance where he held his own, but he played half a game. So we'll see if he can do that more consistently in the future. And then we have Augustine from Michigan. He's the starting goalie for Michigan State. We allowed him, instead of going to Grand Rapids and splitting reps, we let him stay at Michigan State, so he's playing 80% of the games there. Michigan State won the Big Ten, and he won goalie of the year or whatever for the Big Ten. So like we do have two young up and coming prospects that are at least starting their development and whatnot. And unfortunately, goalies do develop slower than other positions. So while we're sitting here waiting for the Nate Danielsons and the two Swedish players we just had come over and whatnot, um, the goalies take unfortunately a little longer than that. But I can at least say with certainty that is normal. It's just a part of the game, kind of like a quarterback. It just a lot of them just don't get it year one. It just doesn't click. It takes a little bit of time. But yeah, so I guess to end my speech, I'd go goalie in what we need most.
Yeah, and like, as you already know, I agree with that. Obviously, we do need everything, and kind of that relates back to your question on Iserman. I'm still in the boat of, he should get one more year, but I don't. If we don't make the playoffs next year, man, I'm sorry, but I don't see a way we can keep him around. It's like Not, and you made a great point earlier in the first segment of the Red Wings talk was, you said he he's been here for 6 years. The last 2 years we regressed. We were closer to the playoffs last year than we were this year. So it's like, what are we even talking about, man? I feel like we're living in the fucking Jim Caldwell era Lions right now, where it's like, I mean, we're
Well
all
said.
right, but that's about it. Like, we got a decent team, but we're just not able to win when it matters. You know what I mean? And obviously, the Lions still made the playoffs when he was there. So even that's a little bit higher, than what the Red Wings are doing right now. So, I think Yzerman should get one more year because this will be his, like, piece de resistance or whatever you want to call it, like his culmination of what he has built over the last 6 seasons. You have a solid young core. I think we can all agree on that. You got Sider, you got Raymond, you got Larkin, you got DeBrincat. I think those are four pretty damn good players, man. Like, those are four guys you can legit build around, right? That's awesome. But what
Yeah.
about the other guys on the roster? And I think that's where we have this conversation of, okay, what is he going to do about the rest of it? A lot of people have talked about moving on from Larkin. I'm not in that boat, not yet at least. I feel like if he was getting paid 14 million a year or something crazy, I'd be like, yeah, ship him out of here. But I mean, I feel like his number, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I feel like his cap number is relatively, uh, respectable, for a player of his caliber at least. Now, I do feel like,
Yes.
as you said, we need all three levels, right? And I think that first round pick being so low kind of fucks us out of that a little bit because we're going, okay, we need to go make a trade for a all-star level, talent. I would prefer, if we're going to go a skater, I'd prefer a defenseman. I think your defense in every sport makes your offense better. And I think hockey, especially, because it's one of those sports where shit's always moving. It's like basketball. If you steal the ball, you got a chance to go lay it up too. It's like, you know what I mean? So I just feel if we got better on defense, we would get better on offense as well. But that's just kind of how I think about it. And, I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything about hockey. So that's just my opinion on it. But I also do feel he deserves another year to, like I said, kind of build what his whole vision was. But if we're not able to make a big move this offseason, and even, you know what, even if we don't make a big move, if we're not able to get better enough to at least make the playoffs, and I know you said, which was a great point, a lot of these teams are way better than us right now. Yeah, that's just the case. And I think that's a great reason why we should be talking about Yzerman being on the hot seat because he's been here for 6 years and we're still talking about we're just not ready. We're just not ready. Well, when the fuck are we going to be ready, bro? Like, fucking, am I going to be 35? I'm 24 right now, folks, by the way. So that's 11 more years. Is that what? 4 more years. Is that what the fuck we're doing right now, man? Like, seriously? Like, come on. I just feel like, there's got to be a point where push come to shove because, I see your Twitter conversations all the time with people, especially about the Yzerman stuff. And there's so many people that are just like, you're an idiot. Yzerman is awesome. And it's like, what track record makes you say that? Like, Brad Holmes? I get it if people are like, shut the fuck up, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. That motherfucker's got a track record, okay? His shit is immaculate, all right? He's only got a couple bad things he's done as a GM, and I mean, that's pretty damn good, okay? And bad is who you ask, I think, for the most part. There's a couple moves that I think you could say are just bad in general, but it's a little bit more subjective. So, long story short, to wrap this up, Yzerman is a solid GM. It's kind of like what I was talking about with Brad Holmes last podcast. He's a solid GM, but I think this offseason is where he can either prove that he's just okay or he's actually good at his job. Okay, because he's built the pieces to try to make us a winning team, just hasn't put it together yet. And I do think the coach, he got the right coach this time. It seems as such. So I think there's some pieces we can build on. So going forward, I do think, Iserman is on the hot seat, but he's got a whole season and a whole off season to kind of figure his shit out because I know you're over it. You've been watching Red Wings hockey much longer than me. So, but with that being said, is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
The only thing I wanted to touch on is, like you said, you see a lot of um, the discussions, I'll say, I have on X about the Red Wings. I don't care what people think of me, but I do want people to know I want the Wings to win. I had a couple people say like, "Oh, you want us to fail just so you can say, ha, told you Eiserman sucked." I would love to eat a heaping pile of crow and we just win the fucking Stanley Cup. And then I'm like, well, I guess I don't know shit. You guys are right. Like I do want this team to succeed, but they aren't. So I'm like, I'm not wishing for failure. I'm just reporting on what's in front of my face. And what's in front of my face is unfortunately failure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. There. With that being said, we will move on to a non-sports specific conversation here, and it's more of an announcement, right? Michigan sports media is seeing some change right now. Okay, we're gonna see a large expansion come pretty soon. I've been working on some things here in the dark, so just be prepared for that. We are looking to obviously add to the team. I already said that. We are offering pay, so bring your ass over here, apply, hit my email. We we are now. Don't get too excited because I am just a regular man. Okay, I'm not fucking Spencer Strassmore out here. My Ballers
Take some of
fans
that
were
back. Take some of that
right. It was all ones, guys. It was all ones.
back.
No, but in all seriousness, we are expanding. And I'm gonna kind of just leave it at that. I don't wanna, give you guys too much here. Just, stay tuned because there is a lot of things going on here. Big things, big things. Okay. I've been working on, what, I'll give you a little taste. We are currently working on our own network. We're just going to leave it at that. Okay. Now, with that being said, appreciate you Fanatics for sponsoring this video. As always, the link is in the description. You click the link. It is good for 7 days. Anytime you go back to Fanatics, boom, our link is still going to be linked to it, I guess is the best way to put it. So within 7 days, if you buy anything, you will help us out with a small percentage of your order. So if you're going to buy, I don't know, like a shirt like this, I got this from Fanatics, actually. They always have pretty good sales, so it's definitely something worth checking out. They have legit merch, too. It's not like some third, if you don't know what it is, it's not like some third-party website. This is legitimate NFL licensed gear, NBA, MLB, all of it. They got it all. So if you're looking to buy some stuff, Fanatics is the best place already. Why not help us out? Support your local sports guys. So with that being said, we will now move on to the Detroit Pistons, baby. The Pistons obviously lost to the Knicks in the first round, but we all knew that was going to happen. I feel like this is a mini victory for Pistons fans, okay? Because we saw a team go to bat with a very talented New York Knicks team that is currently up 1-0 on Boston. I mean, we hear all this stuff about trade for this guy, trade for this guy, trade for this guy, which we'll get into in a little bit. Don't get me wrong. We are part of that conversation, but you hear all this conversation about trading for everybody, but I don't know, man. I think this young core is pretty damn good as long as we can add a little bit more to it. Because don't get me wrong, man. I still do not think we're beating Boston regardless. So even if we beat the Knicks, it's like cool, but we're losing to Boston. So with that being said, the Celtics also have to make some moves this offseason to cut some money from their cap. So something to keep an eye on. Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Derek White, guys like that, they might be on the move. Most obviously trading because they are under contract, but not saying the Pistons should trade for one of them, but just saying the Celtics are probably going to break that core up pretty soon to save some money. So that would obviously help the Pistons out quite a bit, but I still don't know if we can get over that hump because you got teams like the Cavs, the Knicks, obviously, like we just played. There's a lot of good teams in the NBA right now. So with that being said, I think we can all rest assured and rest our laurels on the fact that the Pistons had the best season they've had since 2008. Like, when was the last time we won a playoff game? I want to say might have been like 2011 or 2012, something crazy like that. Because I know 2018 was when we went to the playoffs the last time with Blake Griffin, but I know we didn't win a game because we got swept by Milwaukee in that series. So this season's a big fat ass win for all Pistons fans, man. This feels like it couldn't have gone. I mean, obviously it could have gone better. We could have won the championship, I guess. But for where we went or where we were to where we're at now, it could not have gone really any better. So with that being said, James, I want to turn this back to you before we move on with the Pistons conversation. You got anything to add regarding the Knicks series and the season, I guess, as a whole?
Well, to be honest, I thought we were going to beat the Knicks. It was a tall task, but I did not expect Isaiah Stewart to go out in game one. I feel like that was a huge um, difference maker in the other games and how we still took them to at least game six. And I was hoping that I knew it was a long shot, but I was hoping Ivy came back. So, I mean, like you said, it is a very talented Knicks team. They are beating Boston 1-0. It's early, but that's what's going on right now. And we did it without two starters. So, and an extremely young core. So I know, and I've seen like not trade rumors, but like trade talk and candidates, and maybe we can try to get this guy, maybe we can try to get that guy. And I know we're going to talk about that more in a moment. But I would hesitate a little bit just because our core is young and we've already at least done this. And um, I just I don't want to take what we have for granted because we were coming off 31 wins in the last 2 years combined after getting 17 wins and 14 wins. And now we had 44 plus a couple playoff wins. So like you said, Chase, like technically speaking, yeah, I guess we could have won the championship, but let's be real here. After after having two back-to-back seasons of under 20 wins, that's not a expectation. So in terms of expectations, especially for year one, new GM, year one, new head coach, Cade coming off injury, like it's this season was phenomenal. The season was phenomenal with the standards, with the expectations, um, just overall a great job. And I am before I get too far off topic, I'm pretty pissed that Bickerstaff did not win Coach of the Year. Um, I feel like I wanted to touch on real quick that I feel like he got hosed. I feel like Dan Campbell got hosed. And last year, I feel like AJ Hinch, the manager of the Tigers, got hosed because we did not have a single player making over $30 million dollars on our roster for baseball, which is a feat. For reference, Otani's making more than 50. And we made it to the second round of the playoffs for the Tigers. And I'm just like, not one Detroit manager or coach, depending on what sport, is getting the respect they deserve. And just I just got to shrug my shoulders and say Detroit versus everybody. And then I'll send it back to you.
There it is, Detroit versus everybody, as always. Yeah, you made some great points here, and I also want to add before we move on to the next topic that Jalen Brunson, why? Why? Why did you have to come into our home and cook us? Like, Uh, you dropped 30 points a game outside of one. You had more than 30 every game other than one game. The thing is, okay, I think Jalen Brunson just had a career-defining playoff series. And I know we're talking about the Pistons and everything, but I want to give this guy his flowers, okay? Because everybody was talking shit about him the whole series. Everybody. I included. I mean, I was at the fucking game the week before the playoffs when they played each other, and I was calling him weak and soft and all this shit. And I'll tell you, I made him miss 2 free throws. I probably didn't, but I will always put that in my head that I made him miss those 2 free throws at the end because I was fucking screaming, man. And it seemed like nobody else really was. Now, that shot that he hit over Asar Thompson is like peak. The way he made him, he dropped his ass, bang, and then just stood there. Like, I'm sorry, but that was such an I'm him moment right there. He was just like, yeah, fuck you, shut up,
Yeah.
I'm him. And I was like, you can't be mad, you just can't. You're like, God damn, I wish I was a Knicks fan right now because I'd be going crazy. Like, holy shit. Like, this dude, he just obviously he had his woes with flopping and all that shit throughout the series. And don't get me wrong, I still don't like that part of him, but you cannot be mad at a great basketball moment, regardless of what team it's for. You know, now, if it would have just ended there, we'd be okay. But we had to have that bullshit at the end of the game where Cade passed it to Malik and Malik passed it to the fucking courtside. And he was wide open, by the way. Like I'm saying if Malik Beasley gets that ball in his hands, he's hitting that shot. I just feel like he is. And he said, "Here you go." Like that killed me inside a little bit. Okay, the Jalen Brunson thing was like, damn, that was sweet, but we still got a chance. And then that just broke me. It was like, oh fuck, okay, of course. Now, with that being said, Cade Cunningham, I do think we did a solid job, but I don't think we mentioned him enough for this season because obviously he's the guy. He is the one. He is the savior of Detroit basketball right now. All NBA player, probably all NBA first team. Honestly, should be. First time All Star this year. You know, absolutely tore it up. And now to our next conversation is who is going to be his running mate next year. You know, we talked about we need to keep this young core intact, which I agree to an extent because, look, I like Jaden Ivey. Do I think next year he's going to average 25? No. Okay? We need somebody who can average 25 a fucking game. Period. That's it. Like at this point, I don't give a shit who it is at all. Get me somebody that averages 25 a game because that's what Cade needs right now. We have everything else. Like if we keep this core intact, we could trade we could trade Tobias Harris and another player and maybe a first rounder. We just need somebody that can at least give us 25 a game so Cade doesn't have to do everything, okay? Now, we got kind of lucky and Malik would give us, 20 here and Tobias would give us 20 there and Duren would give us 20 here. We need consistent 25 a game from one guy, in my opinion. Now, there's two names, okay, that keep getting circled, all right? Number one, we've talked about it many times, Devin Booker, the Detroit native. Obviously, that's going to be a big talking point all offseason. He's still relatively young. He's kind of the perfect piece next to Cade. It would be great to have him. However, it's going to cost too much, I think. I don't think Phoenix is going to get rid of him. I think they're going to trade Kevin Durant, try to get rid of Bradley Beal, but I don't see that happening. But I do think they're going to keep Booker. So that one's kind of, in the wash, at least for me. Giannis Antetokounmpo, though, is a little intriguing. However, I don't see it, and here's why. Okay, I kind of had a conversation back and forth on Twitter about this earlier today with, I believe it was Pistons Talk, which is a pretty, well-known Pistons podcast, I believe. And essentially, the conversation was this package that I'm sure a lot of you have seen going around where it's like Tobias Harris, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and somebody else and a bunch of picks for Giannis. Yeah, and everybody agreed that was way too much for a guy like Giannis simply because of the team that we have right now. Okay. That's number one reason why I don't see that happening. Number two, if OKC wants him, he will be a Thunder. Period. Point blank. There is not one fucking team in the NBA that can give a better package than the Thunder can. Okay. Isaiah Hartenstein, Lou Dort, uh, what's his? Oh shit! Now I'm forgetting his name. We got Isaiah Hartenstein, Lou Dort. We got Usman Yang is a young guy that I could see maybe getting traded. We've got Kassan Wallace is another young guy that offers a lot of value right now, and a lot of people have comped him to Drew Holiday, who used to be a Milwaukee Buck. So think about it that way. It might make sense. On top of that, though, I think they have more expendable pieces that they can trade than Detroit because they are just better right now. They have better salaried players. So, like, if I'm looking at Tobias Harris versus Isaiah Hartenstein's a better player. He just is. Okay. Right now, he just is. And he's only making $3 million more. Then, on top of that, you're probably talking Lou Dort, who had a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year. That's better than anything else in that whole trade. Jaden Ivey, Lou Dort's better than him right now. Okay, and then all the picks. They have more draft picks than literally anyone else in the NBA. Okay, so Giannis Antetokounmpo as a Detroit Piston ain't gonna happen, folks. You can just forget about it. Because not only that, the third reason is he doesn't fit stylistically. Okay, and here's why. If you trade away Jaden Ivey and Tobias Harris and Jalen Duren, that tells me two things. Okay. We can't shoot the 3-point for shit because that means we're going to have Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Isaiah Stewart on the frickin' court at the same time. Okay. And I'm sorry, I love Cade, but he's not an elite 3-point shooter right now. Okay. The spacing doesn't work. Giannis would have to be a center, like a legit center, not this whole fucking unicorn shit he's been doing in Milwaukee. I mean, that's what he is. But in Detroit, he's not going to have the ball as much, and he's going to have to post up. He's going to be a pick and roll. He's going to be a lob threat, and that's what Giannis is going to be. And you know what? I think Giannis is better than that. So for all of those reasons, I'm out on Giannis for Detroit. For OKC, I think it's a match made in heaven. You essentially swap him for iHeart. Probably put, Lou Dort in that deal and a bunch of first round picks and call it a fucking day. Because then Milwaukee still has a solid team as long as Dame Lillard stays. With that being said, we have a Q&A question actually today, kind of, around this whole situation of what player we could get. This was a hypothetical, of course, but the question is, if you could pick any player in the entire NBA, regardless of, salary, whatever the case, pick one player to go alongside Cade, who would it be? Okay. And I really like this question, which, is why we're answering it, because it opens up a lot of hypotheticals here. Okay. Because I think there's one guy that just makes clear sense over everybody else, but it's also the easiest one. It's like, pick any player in the NBA and say, what's the one guy you would put next to him? And I think everybody is saying the same thing. It's Victor Wembanyama, man. Like, how is that even a thought, honestly, in my opinion? Who's the best player to put next to Devin Booker? Victor Wembanyama. Who's the best player to put next to Anthony Edwards? Victor Wembanyama. Who's the best? You get what I'm saying here? It's like literally every player in the NBA is Victor Wembanyama, and that's because he's a unicorn. He offers something even Giannis doesn't offer. He's 7'5", 7'4". He can shoot. He can dribble. He plays great defense. Obviously, he freaking averaged over 2.5 blocks a game. Almost won defense. He would have been defensive player of the year if he didn't get hurt. Let's be real. Okay. It seems obvious. Now, if you take Victor Wembanyama off, it gets a little muddier. And, I kind of like the idea of the hypothetical of Victor being on the team, but it's obvious. So what are your thoughts? Like, what would your ideal, if you can just think off the top of your head, what's your ideal addition for the Pistons?
It's funny you mentioned that because if the, God, I hate lotteries. If the stupid ping pong ball bounced in a certain way, we could have that situation, and it wouldn't even be hypothetical, and we wouldn't have to trade anything to get him. I like Osoro Thompson, no offense to him, but he's not Victor. So, um, and shame on me because Victor should have been, excuse me, should have been the name that came to my mind. But there is one player that came to my mind first, and you, as an OKC fan, would hate this losing him. But the first thing to come to my head was SGA. I think Cade and SGA would have a mean backcourt, and that would open up a lot of things. Um, I'll just say elsewhere. But they're both young. They're both obviously supremely talented. You could tell me more about him than I can tell him. But that was the first name that came to my mind.
Yeah, and I honestly really like that too because I was kind of racking my brain on guards that I think would be a good fit, and I just couldn't really think of many. The thing I love about SGA and Cade is being together is they're pretty similar players, honestly. Like SGA is a little obviously better, but he's a little more, I don't know what's the word. He's a little more, smooth. You know what I mean? He's a little slicker with his moves and his dribbles and his pull-ups and like he's just a little bit better right now, but they're similar styles. They're both 6'6". They're both point guards. They both can play with the ball or without the ball. Now, the one thing I will say is kind of a knock on both of them is they're neither are elite three-point shooters, so that's one reason why I could see some issues there. Because if you start making Cade be a fucking post up or not a post up, a spot up shooter, you might have some issues, going at the end of games when I'm sorry, if Cade and SGA are on the same team, you're going to SGA at the end of the game. You just are. He's better right now. So
100%.
like if SGA is the guy with the ball, that means Cade's going to have to be the next option, which that causes some issues. But I do like the fit because that's great defensive backcourt. They're very, I would say they're both long and strong, and they add a lot of length to your defense as well. And I do think both of them are underrated defenders for what it's worth. Now, with that being said, we will move on to the Lions for a short conversation for the first time in, I think, this podcast history. This is literally going to be the shortest Lions conversation we've ever had because it's simply going to be me saying this. We have $42 million in cap space right now. What the fuck? I thought we didn't have any money. That's really all I got right now because obviously there's a lot of free agents left. I thought with the way Brad Holmes was talking, like we were going to have $10 million in cap, because you got to keep a buffer. You can't just use all of it. But looking, we have $42 million in cap space. Now, I will say I want to, right? I will say I want to kind of recant on some things I have said because I don't know if it's a restructure. I don't know if this is new. I don't know if anything changed, but from the last time I looked at it, Graham Glasgow, if he's cut, actually only opens $4.7 million. So I, for some reason, must have seen something on a different site that was incorrect because it said around 8 million. So with that being said, I understand why we would keep him, just because it's like you might as well for that depth. If you got 42 million fucking dollars left, why would you cut a solid player to save 4.5? I mean, really, and that's where I get confused though, because it's like the Zadarius Smith thing. I'm a big Von Miller guy. He's still out there. There's a lot of good players that are available right now, and who knows, the Lions might sign them. I mean, I'm not putting anything past Brad Holmes at this point. But seeing that we have $42 million makes me feel a lot better about that potential. And also, before I pass it over to you, Khalif Raymond, he must have had a switch or a change in deals or a restructure or something that we don't know about, because similar to Glasgow, his said he was going to clear, I think, 3.5 million out of his like 6 or whatever. Now we would eat more money than we would even clear for him. So Doesn't really seem like we're going to be making any cuts this offseason, at least cap casualty ones. You know, not we're not going to get a bunch of cap space by cutting anybody. That's for sure. So with that being said, James, I will pass it over to you if you got anything to add on the Lions front.
The only thing I wanted to add to that, because like you said, there's nothing happening right now. But with the 42 million, about a quarter of that, the average, because it depends on where you pick in the draft and how many picks, if you trade up or down, lose picks, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, the average draft class takes about 11.5 million to sign. With us picking 28th, it's probably on the lower end of that. Um, the number you saw, because it was probably the same number I saw, is Glasgow is like an 8.5 million cap hit this year. So I just don't know, because this is where I get shaky with football. The numbers and the math and the contract. So I would assume, and I'm wrong, but I would assume that being an 8.5 million cap hit, if we cut him, we save 8.5 million. But like you said with your research, we only saved four, so clearly there's a 4 million dead cap hit. So that does take into effect, but that's something I don't know how to figure that out, what the dead cap is or whatnot. In
Yeah.
terms of
So,
Khalif Raymond, I do
go ahead.
remember. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. I'll
And then
fill in
in
later.
terms of Khalif Raymond, I do remember hearing that he restructured, and I just quickly searched it. I'm sorry, March 31st, so right before April hit, he restructured his contract. So I don't know exactly how they did the money, change it to signing bonus or whatever, but they did restructure his contract March 31st of this year.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad you said that because I do not remember seeing that for some reason. Now, what I'm looking at here says that so actually it says Graham Glasgow has a $7.5 million cap hit, which is different from the original number
7.5,
anyway.
okay.
So I wonder if something did happen with him. Maybe they restructured. But from my understanding, okay, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a fucking cap genius, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on these kind of things. From my understanding, the dead hit comes from guarantees and bonuses from the original contract. So like, yes, it says his cap hit is like, let's say like 7.5 million. But by cutting him, you're not going to get all of that back because some of that is guaranteed. Like that's probably the most simplistic way of explaining it because it's generally, I won't say every time, but it's generally like let's just say Graham signed a 3-year $30 million deal with 15 of that guaranteed. Usually only the first 2 years have guarantees, so like you'll see the first year is like fully guaranteed, the second year is like half guaranteed. So if they cut him in that second season, they still have to pay him half of that contract. So and then with that being said, that's pretty much all we got for the Lions right now. I did want to mention because I think we didn't touch on this a lot during when it happened because the draft and everything. But Jahmyr Gibbs changing to number 0, I personally don't like that.
Love it.
I fucking hate it. I
Love it.
I feel like the number 0 is a fucking toilet bowl on the back of a jersey. Okay, I despise the number 0. Okay, and here's the thing though. Quick little tangent. I'm a high school football coach. I see these fucking kids. Oh, 81. What kind of fat ass ugly number is that? I want number 12. And it's like, you're a wide receiver, bro. What the fuck? Like, what is going on with these kids, man? They don't want 80. They don't want 81. They don't want 84. They don't want 85. They don't want 88. Every wide receiver wants to be number 1 and number 0, number 4, number 7. And it's like, where the fuck did this come from, man? And that's my tangent on jersey numbers because I also bought the number 26 Jahmyr Gibbs, so I'm a little upset about his change. I also just fucking hate the number, man. If you would have went to number 2, number 1, number 6, I'd be like, I can at least live with it. But number 0, it's like, shit, fucking dude. But anyway, moving on from the Lions, the got a couple more things here before we wrap it up real quick. We obviously have to mention Sherrone Moore suspended himself for the third and fourth game, I believe, which would be Central Michigan versus Nebraska. And I saw a lot of people saying, why wouldn't he suspend himself for the first two games? Well, if you get the choice, okay, number one is the first two games are super important in terms of like establishing yourself and establishing your team that year, because in college specifically it's a completely different team every year. So those first couple games you're really figuring it out. But also, okay, week one they play New Mexico. Whatever, they'll probably win that game, right? It wouldn't be a big deal if they didn't have Sherrone Moore. Week two they play Oklahoma, okay, in Oklahoma, okay. You're a fucking nutcase if you think Sherrone Moore is going to be like, I'll take that game off. Like, no, he's going to be there because that's a huge game for Michigan next year, because they weren't that good last year, guys. Let's be real. They're not coming off a national championship anymore. Oklahoma is going to be a big game to start the season. So then they play Central Michigan and Nebraska. Those should be wins. I mean, Nebraska is going to be a little harder, but Oklahoma is clearly the best team out of the first four games, excuse me. So I totally understand him not wanting to take himself out of that game. Now, the reasoning behind this, I don't fully understand. I know it's obviously linked to the Connor Stallions thing, and from my understanding from things I've seen, it sounds like there were some text messages between Sherrone and I believe Stallions that Sherrone deleted. Now, the reason he is suspending himself, I think, is because he, and I'm a Michigan fan saying this, but he wants to be looked at as the good guy, right? The messages he deleted apparently weren't. See, you're with it. The go blue, baby, all day long. Now,
Yeah.
the messages he sent, I would assume weren't, or deleted, I'm sorry, weren't like Connor Stallions being like, yeah, man, I'm over here sitting in the fucking blah, 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 stealing these guys' signs. It was probably just something like subtle or something not that big of a deal, right? But I think Sherrone Moore wanted to be looked at as the good guy who doesn't want to be linked to this shit. He deleted the messages. He's like, oh, I fucked up. I'll just suspend myself before they can even give me a suspension, because the NCAA is happy because they don't got to fucking deal with it anymore. And then well, not all, because I know Ohio State fans want us to be stripped of our championship and fucking our school to be burnt down and all that shit. So most, I would say most people are ready for this shit to just be over and to move on, because they're not taking our title. At least I don't think. From everything I've seen, it doesn't sound like that's even in consideration. So, especially from what I heard, it sounds like the NIL is kind of getting in the way of that too. For some reason, I don't quite understand it, but it's got to be something to do with the money going to the kids and all this shit. I don't know. That has something to do with it, I guess. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I fucking understand it all. But with that being said, it's not that big of a deal. I think, the first two games, they're usually not the hardest games, but Oklahoma being week two kind of changes that. So I get it being week 3 and 4. James, do you got anything to add to this before we move on?
Well, the only thing I want to add really is I'm just really tired of the story, to be honest. Harbaugh, Michigan had a Harbaugh suspension for this ordeal, or it might have been the cheeseburger ordeal, and then there was a self-imposed infraction. Now this is a second self-imposed one with more. So this is the third coaching penalty we've gotten for this stupid ass scandal that didn't even involve coaches. It was about the assistant Stallions, and I'm not even going to start anymore because I'm going to go on a tirade. Um, no, there is literally not even talk, unless you're a Michigan State or an Ohio State fan, about vacating any wins. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but I've retweeted the screenshot from 2 years ago when it happened, that the president of the NCAA says no one can say Michigan did not win this championship non-legit. Like the freaking president of the NCAA says, yeah, the cheating was by Stallions. He did cheat. He fucked up. By all reports, once they found out, they fired him. At least according to the reports, wasn't there? Who knows? But it, I just wish the story would eventually get buried. There's no preseason in college football. It's just, hey, go. So they normally schedule a cupcake for week one, brand new quarterback, brand new offensive coordinator. So I understand why he didn't do the first couple games. You need to be there for your team. Um, I don't think Nebraska, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't play a part. I just don't think it plays a huge part into it. I think he just wants to be there to help his team get their feet wet and set up and established. Then he'll take the step back. Um, but I'll just end it there. Yeah, I'll end it there before I make this podcast another half an hour.
I hear you there because I feel like we could kind of go for a while on this. The one thing I will say on the Connor Stallions front is I'm going to make this short, okay? He didn't do anything that other people haven't done. He just got caught. That's it. All right, we're just going to leave it there and move on. Now, with that being said, the last thing that we have today on the show is an NFL trade happened today, boys. George Pickens was traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a third-round pick. The Steelers, the Cowboys also received a sixth-round pick in return for Pickens. Now, it does sound like he's going to play out his current deal, which is just 1 year, which I understand. Now, the only thing I don't love about this is, like, Pickens, from everything I've gathered, a lot of people think he's, like, a bad character guy, kind of like how Antonio Brown was, or, just like your regular diva wide receiver. From everything I've heard, specifically from John Ledyard, I'm sure a lot of people know who that is, he has talked about Pickens being immature and like kind of out of it, and like, yeah, he's a little emotional and stuff like that. But he also mentions that he doesn't think, for instance, the reason I know this is because I asked him. I said, "Do you think Pickens is pissed because when DK Metcalf got traded to Pittsburgh?" I said, "Now I know I know Pickens is going to be pissed about this," and he said, "I don't really think so." He said it. He went as far as to say Pickens might not even know who DK Metcalf is. So, I thought that was pretty funny, and I was like, that can't be real. There's no fucking way an NFL wide receiver doesn't know who the fuck DK Metcalf is. Like, and I'm not saying he's the best wide receiver in the NFL or anything, but come on. Like, that seemed a little crazy. But, based on other things I've heard, it ain't that crazy, actually. Like, this kid, George, seems like he's just kind of in his own world, man, and I don't know if that's better or worse than being an AB type, honestly, because you never know what to expect with that. Obviously, you never know what to expect with AB, but you know he's going to be fucking batshit. So at least you can expect that. Now, I do like the move for the Steelers because they just traded for Metcalf. They get some of those picks back in this move. However, if you think about it, you just traded away a 24-year-old stud wide receiver. He's not top 10 or anything, but he's a stud. For a third-round pick, you traded for a 27-year-old wide receiver with multiple picks, including a second-rounder, and then paid his ass it was $18 million a year, or not 18, fucking $32 million a year.
Oh, no, more than that.
Yeah, it was like he got a crazy amount of money, I think. So I don't love it from that standpoint, simply because the Steelers quarterback is Mason fucking Rudolph, bro. Like, that's not gonna cut it. Now, I do think Will Howard has a chance over there to kind of, maybe even win the spot by the time the season starts. I do think Rudolph will at least be the starter for the first few games, if Rodgers doesn't go there. Now, if Rodgers goes there, a lot of this changes, I think, because at least you have a competent starter at quarterback. But I just don't love the idea of trading away a young, talented player for less than you just traded for an older, talented player, and then you had to pay him. Just the logic there isn't great. But again, on the Cowboys side, I like it for them, but I don't love it because you traded for a 1 year rental wide receiver who's going to ask for big money, who you just gave up a third round pick for, and your O line isn't great, and your defense isn't great, and you're just not, you know what I mean? You're not quite in win now mode. So I don't really love it for either team. I don't really love it for fantasy either, if I'm being honest with you. It kind of fucks CeeDee Lamb a little bit, and also George Pickens is no longer the number one wide receiver on his team. So I just think it's an okay trade for everybody. But with that being said, James, what are your thoughts on this, if you have any?
I do, and just to give you a heads up while you were talking about that, I looked up the contract just so I like having the numbers be accurate. DK Metcalf's extension was for 33 million per season,
Okay.
so a little more than 18. But
Yeah, no, I
just
knew
so
I
that way
was
we get the
wrong. I
numbers
did
right.
say 32, so I was almost there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard 18 while I was looking. No, no. If you said 32, then I'm just a dick for bringing it up. But I heard
No,
18.
you're
I'm like,
good.
I know it ain't that. But
Yeah. I would prefer to be
but yeah.
on it than not. So appreciate you looking that up.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I'm like I had 18 in my head, and while you were going on, I'm just like I know that ain't it. So you might have said
Yeah.
it while I was uh in my own head. But I like to trade a lot for Pittsburgh. As you said, I'm not too big on him. The kid's got talent, like he does. I don't know if he's a top 30 receiver in the league, to be honest. Um, he's got talent. That's undeniable. And I don't see him. Maybe it's the receiver in me. All receivers, well, the vast majority of receivers have some kind of diva in them. It's just how we are. It just is. And I don't see him like AB batshit crazy. I see him more as like OBJ punching the punter's net and just kind of doing those kind of antics. I don't think, I mean, I haven't covered him. I don't follow his team and whatnot. I don't think he's had off the field issues or anything like that. But I do see him crying when he doesn't get the ball and, just, I hate to say acting out, but acting out. Like that's his kind of thing. But he's a damn good player. But as you mentioned, he said flat out that he wants to play. He'll play out this year with the Cowboys, and he just wants to hit free agency. He wants to hit the open market. He wants to see what options are out there. And you traded away a third round pick for what I'm going to say is likely a rental. I don't think a player with that type of attitude is going to want to be the second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb or deal with um I hate to say the lights because it's not like it's New York, but I mean it's the Dallas Cowboys. They're in the light. I'm not going to call them that other name because America's team is the Lions. But ever since Hard Knocks. But I think he's going to be a rental. And in terms of Pittsburgh, I love the trade. You got rid of a distraction, in my opinion. You gain draft capital after giving some away for Metcalf. Metcalf is expensive but proven. You know what you're getting with him. He's big, tall, fast. He's a proven number one. You obviously, as you mentioned, have to do something at quarterback. But I also understand because they signed him to a 4 year extension, they have Metcalf more than just this year, unlike Dallas. And I don't think it will happen, but just for fun, I will throw out the idea of him becoming the Steelers, Jack Flaherty with the Tigers. We traded him away at the deadline and then re-signed him in the offseason. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but just what if he signs back with Pittsburgh after this season? They got a third round pick for a potential rental. And like I said, I don't see it happening, but just what if? Something to just linger on the mind because, like I said, and like you said, there's not much NFL news, so gotta talk about something. Although rookie training camp is coming up shortly, so at least we'll have something then. But yeah, that's all I got on that trade.
Yeah, and that's valid because like you said, right now is the dead season. So it's like this is when all the hypotheticals come out. We're talking about like I just said, who's the number one player you wish Cade Cunningham could play with? That'll never fucking happen, so it doesn't matter, no, but it's like we ain't got shit to talk about, so we might as well. No, with that being said though, once again, James, I appreciate you for joining me. Everybody tuning in, I appreciate you guys for watching. We are live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. until things start to pick up again, and then we'll go back to our 2 days a week. But it'll probably be a few months before that happens. Give ourselves a little bit of a rest. We've been kind of going hard for a few months now. So, with that being said, don't forget, Fanatics, link in the bio. Y'all know what to do. Click that thing, buy some shit, help us out. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Hit our website, subscribe there as well. You will get emails for every article that we publish. So if you want to stay up to date with all the stuff without having to scroll Twitter to find it, hit those emails. With that being said, appreciate you guys for watching. You can find me at JSoSweet, James at Gullet_James, and you can find both of us at MI Sports Media and at misportsmedia.com. And we will see you guys on the next one.